Every spring, millions of gardeners dig a hole, drop in a seedling, and hope for the best. Most of them will spend $50, $100, sometimes $200 on fertilizers before the season ends, and most of them will still end up with tired soil by August. But here is something the garden centers will never put on a shelf. Two of the most powerful soil-transforming substances on Earth are already sitting inside nearly every home in America. One comes from the kitchen counter, the other comes from the fireplace. Both are completely free. There is a catch, though, a serious one. Used alone, each ingredient hits a ceiling. Used carelessly, one of them can burn a garden to the ground overnight. But combined correctly, layered together in the planting hole before a single root touches the earth, something remarkable happens. A biological chain reaction begins, one that does not fade after the first season. It compounds. Year after year, it builds. This video breaks down exactly what these two ingredients are, the science behind why they work, the precise method that makes them safe, and the 3 mistakes that ruin everything. Nothing here requires a trip to the store. Everything starts with what is already at hand. Section 1. The illusion of the quick fix. Why do so many gardens fade by midsummer? The answer usually comes in a bright, colorful bag. Synthetic fertilizers are essentially isolated mineral salts. They dissolve fast. Roots absorb them almost instantly. The plant shoots up, the leaves turn dark green, and for a few weeks, everything looks like a magazine cover. But underneath the surface, something is quietly falling apart. Those salts feed the plant. They do not feed the soil. The bacteria, the fungi, the earthworms, the invisible workforce that keeps soil alive, get nothing from synthetic chemicals. Over time, they decline. The soil compacts. It stops holding water. It loses its structure. And the gardener is left buying more and more fertilizer just to stay in the same place. Plenty of experienced growers already know this. That is why so many have turned to a beloved organic alternative, coffee grounds. Scatter them around the tomatoes and the earthworms multiply. The leaves darken. The soil smells richer. Coffee grounds work, no question about it. But here is the part almost nobody talks about. Something happens around year 2 or 3. A gardener who has been faithfully adding coffee grounds starts to notice that the improvements have stalled. Growth plateaus. Harvests level off. The magic seems to fade. Everything is being done right. So what went wrong? The answer is not about doing more. It is about what is missing. Coffee grounds deliver energy and biology, but they are almost completely lacking in one critical category: minerals, calcium, potassium, the structural building blocks that a plant cannot manufacture on its own. The biological engine is running, but it has nothing left to build with. And that missing piece? It has been sitting in the fireplace all winter long. Section 2. The dark gold of the morning. Coffee grounds. Before diving into that second ingredient, it is worth understanding exactly why coffee grounds deserve the reputation they have earned. Hundreds of millions of cups of coffee are consumed in the United States every single day. That translates into staggering amounts of used grounds heading straight to the landfill. In the hands of a gardener, though, those grounds become something entirely different. The key is nitrogen. Used coffee grounds contain roughly 2% nitrogen by weight. Compared to a bag of synthetic fertilizer boasting 20 or 30%, that sounds small. But the difference is in the delivery. Synthetic nitrogen dissolves in water and vanishes with the next heavy rain. Coffee ground nitrogen is locked inside complex organic molecules, proteins, cellular walls, fibrous structures. A plant cannot access it directly. It needs help. And this is where something beautiful happens. The moment coffee grounds enter the soil, bacteria and fungi respond. They swarm toward this new food source and begin breaking it down. As they consume it, they release the nitrogen slowly, steadily, in a form roots can actually absorb. not a spike that washes away, a sustained feeding that lasts for months. And where the bacteria gather, earthworms follow. Earthworms are drawn to coffee grounds the way children are drawn to a cookie jar. The grounds act as a stimulant and a gritty digestive aid. The worms eat, they tunnel, and they leave behind castings, nature's most concentrated fertilizer. Worm castings contain 5 to 10 times more plant-available nutrients than the surrounding soil. So the system builds on itself. Coffee grounds feed the bacteria. Bacteria feed the worms. Worms enrich the soil. The soil feeds the plant. It is an elegant, self-reinforcing cycle. But every cycle has a limit. Those thriving bacteria and hard-working earthworms are operating in a mineral-starved environment. Coffee grounds deliver almost no calcium. Their potassium levels are modest at best. The workforce is enormous and hungry, but the raw materials have run out. The biological engine revs higher and higher with nothing left to build. Breaking through that ceiling requires something coffee grounds simply cannot provide. Something ancient, mineral-dense, and overlooked by nearly everyone. Section 3. The ashes of winter's warmth. Wood ash. A bucket of fireplace ash looks like waste. Gray powder. The leftover ghost of a fire that already gave its warmth. Most people bag it up and throw it away without a second thought. But consider what that ash actually is. Picture a mature hardwood tree, an oak, a hickory, a maple. For 50, maybe 100 years, that tree drove its roots deep into the earth and pulled up minerals that no shallow-rooted vegetable could ever reach. Calcium, potassium, magnesium, phosphorus. Dozens of trace elements, all of it woven into the wood, layer by layer, ring by ring. When that wood burns, the carbon goes up in smoke. But minerals do not burn. They stay behind. Every handful of gray ash is the concentrated mineral wealth of decades of slow, patient extraction from deep underground. A century of nutrition compressed into dust. The numbers back this up. Wood ash typically contains 20 to 25% calcium carbonate, the same compound found in eggshells and agricultural lime. Calcium is the great builder. It strengthens cell walls. It prevents blossom end rot in tomatoes and peppers. It gives structure to every growing tissue. Wood ash also carries roughly 5% potassium, historically known as potash, because it literally came from the ashes of pots. Potassium drives fruit and flower production. It regulates water movement inside the plant. It is the reason behind juicy harvests and vibrant blooms. So far, this sounds like a miracle ingredient. And it is. But there is a dangerous side to wood ash that catches gardeners off guard every single year. And this next part deserves full attention, because getting it wrong does not just waste effort, it kills plants. The danger of dry ash. Dry wood ash is highly alkaline. The moment it contacts moisture in the soil, it triggers a sharp chemical reaction. The soil pH spikes. That sudden alkalinity burns the delicate feeder roots that plants depend on for nutrient uptake. But it gets worse. The pH spike also locks up phosphorus, manganese, and iron in the soil, making them completely unavailable. Leaves yellow, growth stalls. Plants look like they have been hit with herbicide. This is exactly why so many well-meaning gardeners try wood ash once, watch their plants suffer, and swear it off forever. The ingredient was never the problem. The delivery method was. Raw power without refinement causes damage. That is true in the garden and everywhere else. The solution is not to avoid wood ash. The solution is to change how it enters the soil. The wood ash extract method. The process is straightforward and takes about 4 days of mostly waiting. Start with a 5-gallon plastic bucket. It must be plastic. Alkaline liquid reacts with metal. Add 1 cup of dry, sifted hardwood ash for every gallon of water. So 4 cups of ash to 4 gallons of water in a 5-gallon bucket. Only use ash from clean, untreated wood. never from painted lumber, pressure-treated boards, or charcoal briquettes. If rainwater is available, use that. If using city tap water, let it sit uncovered for 24 hours first to allow the chlorine to dissipate. Stir the mixture thoroughly with a wooden stick. The water will turn cloudy and gray. That is expected. Cover the bucket loosely and let it sit undisturbed for 3 to 4 days. During that time, something quiet and important is happening. The water is slowly pulling the soluble minerals, calcium, potassium, trace elements, out of the ash particles and into solution. On the 4th day, the heavy sediment will have settled to the bottom. The liquid on top will have changed color. It becomes a clear, light amber, like a very weak cup of tea. That amber liquid is the extract, but it is still a concentrate. Its pH sits somewhere around 10 to 12. Pouring it directly on plants would cause the same burn as dry ash. It needs to be diluted. For a standard 2-gallon watering can, add just 1 to 2 cups of the amber extract. Fill the rest with plain water. The final mixture should look almost clear, just the faintest hint of color. At that dilution, the soil can buffer the pH immediately. Because the minerals are already dissolved in water, they do not sit on the surface forming a crust. They flow straight down into the root zone. Within hours, the ancient mineral strength of the forest is feeding the garden. Section 4. The Synergistic Miracle. When two worlds collide. Now for the part that changes everything. Coffee grounds and wood ash extract are each useful on their own. Plenty of gardeners use one or the other with decent results. But when both are present in the same soil at the same time, something far more powerful takes over. The effect is not addition, it is multiplication. Picture what is happening just inches below the surface. Coffee grounds have been scratched into the top layer of soil. Bacteria are multiplying rapidly, consuming the nitrogen. Earthworms are tunneling through the bed, feasting on the grounds and the bacteria colonies that surround them. Now the diluted wood ash extract is poured in. The liquid flows downward through the earthworm tunnels. It bathes the roots. It saturates the surrounding soil with dissolved calcium and potassium. Those hard-working earthworms are no longer eating in a mineral-poor environment. Every mouthful they take is now loaded with the structural minerals that were missing before. The castings they produce are no longer ordinary. They become supercharged, nutritionally dense packets of complete fertilizer, far richer than anything coffee grounds alone could ever generate. At the same time, the thriving bacteria colonies built by the coffee grounds are now processing and delivering those wood ash minerals to the roots with remarkable efficiency. The biological network becomes a distribution system. Coffee grounds supply the fuel. Wood ash extract delivers the raw materials. Together, they build a living fertility engine that strengthens with every passing week. But knowing the science is only half of it. The difference between a decent garden and an extraordinary one comes down to method and timing. And that is exactly what comes next. Section 5. The Blueprint. How to apply the method. The planting hole protocol. This begins before the plant ever touches the ground. Once spring arrives and the soil has warmed to at least 50 degrees Fahrenheit, it is time to prepare the hole. Dig it to the appropriate depth for the crop, tomato, pepper, squash, whatever the season calls for. First, drop a small handful of used coffee grounds, just a few tablespoons, into the very bottom of the hole. Mix them lightly with the native dirt. This creates a deep, slow-release nitrogen reserve. The roots will not find it immediately. They will grow down into it later in the season, exactly when the plant's demand for nitrogen is highest. Next, introduce the minerals. Either add a very light dusting of dry, sifted wood ash, no more than a teaspoon, or pour a cup of the heavily diluted wood ash extract into the hole and let it soak in. Now comes the step that separates success from disaster. Cover these amendments with 1 to 2 inches of plain, native soil. Do not skip this. The tender, exposed roots of a new seedling must never touch concentrated coffee grounds or ash directly. That barrier of native soil is the safety layer. It protects the roots while allowing them to grow down into the nutrient zone on their own terms, at their own pace. Set the plant in the hole. Backfill with soil. Press gently. The biological and mineral foundation is in place. The weekly rhythm. The real compounding power of this method comes not from a one-time application, but from a steady routine throughout the growing season. Once a week, take leftover coffee grounds and sprinkle them lightly over the soil surface around the plants. Lightly is the key word. A thick layer of coffee grounds dries out, forms a hard crust, and actually repels water. Just a thin scattering. Then use fingers or a hand cultivator to scratch them gently into the top inch of soil. Once a week or once every 2 weeks, apply the diluted wood ash extract as a soil drench around the base of the plants. Not on the leaves, around the roots. When flowers begin to appear on tomatoes, peppers, squash, or beans, the wood ash extract becomes especially important. The plant's demand for potassium surges during flowering and fruiting. That weekly drench supplies exactly what is needed to convert vegetative energy into actual fruit production. And here is a mistake many growers make at this stage. They stop adding coffee grounds once the fruit appears. The biology those grounds support is doing critical work all season long. The bacteria, the worms, the nutrient cycling, none of it should be interrupted. Both ingredients must continue together through the entire growing season. The compounding effect. In the first season, the results are real but modest. The soil will be noticeably darker by fall. Earthworm activity will be measurably higher. Plant growth and fruit quality will improve. But the true power of this method is that it does not plateau. It compounds. Season 2 starts from a stronger baseline. The biological community from year 1 is already established. The mineral reserve built by months of wood ash applications means calcium and potassium are available from the first day of spring root activity. By season 3, the transformation is dramatic. The same bed that struggled to produce a modest harvest in year 1 is now yielding abundantly, without a single bag of store-bought fertilizer. The soil is spongy, dark, and full of humus. The earthworm population is 3 seasons deep. The calcium reservoir is so well established that it buffers the soil against deficiency all season long. Blossom end rot becomes a memory, plant immunity strengthens, and the only cost has been coffee grounds and fireplace ash, things most households throw away. Section 6. The 3 fatal mistakes. Everything described so far can backfire spectacularly if any one of these 3 rules is broken. Mistake number 1. The dry ash dump. This is the most common error and the most destructive. Never take a bucket of dry wood ash and dump it directly onto the garden. Never use the extract without diluting it until it looks like pale, barely tinted water. Dry ash or undiluted extract will spike the soil pH, burn feeder roots, and lock up essential nutrients. The extract preparation and dilution steps are not optional extras. They are the reason this system works safely. Mistake number 2. The acid lover's trap. Wood ash extract raises soil pH. It pushes it toward alkaline. Most vegetables thrive in that range, but there is a specific group of plants that will suffer badly. Blueberries, azaleas, rhododendrons, and potatoes all require acidic soil. Applying wood ash extract to an acid-loving plant prevents it from absorbing iron. The leaves turn a ghostly pale yellow, while the veins stay stubbornly green, a textbook case of iron chlorosis. On potatoes, the raised pH promotes scab, leaving the skin rough and corky. Keep wood ash extract entirely away from acid-loving crops. Mistake number 3. Treating them as interchangeable. When one ingredient runs low, it is tempting to compensate by adding more of the other. Extra wood ash extract to make up for missing coffee grounds. or piles of coffee grounds to replace the ash. This defeats the entire point. Coffee grounds supply nitrogen and feed the biology. Wood ash extract supplies calcium and potassium. They perform completely different jobs. It would be like feeding a construction crew every day but never delivering the lumber. Both must be present. Both must continue. The synergy only works when both halves are in play. The grounds from the morning coffee. The ash from the winter fire. Two things most people discard without a second glance. Yet combined with a little knowledge and a simple weekly routine, they become the foundation of soil that improves every single year, without spending $1 at the garden center. This is not a quick fix. It is a quiet, compounding miracle that rewards patience. The kind of gardening that does not fight against nature, but works alongside it. So before the next seedling goes into the ground, take one more look at the kitchen counter and the fireplace. Everything needed for a healthier garden is already there. If this sparked a new idea, drop a comment below. Coffee grounds, wood ash, or both, which one gets tried first this season? Hit subscribe, tap the bell, and join us next time on Rooted in Grace. Build good soil, and everything else follows.